Pickleball United as a brand has managed to bring pickleball into areas which were not imagined before. We're gonna be in Dubai at the Expo City in February, it's a phenomenal dome venue that was used for Expo 2020 in Dubai. So otherwise, there was no way to think about playing pickleball in these places. I mean, how do you get pickleball in Hard Rock in Miami, right? It's you have to build a platform, roll the mats out.
This is the moment we waited for. Everything you want is right here. We gon' give them what they came for. We gon' take it up from last year. Watch the game change. Watch the game change. Watch the game change. Watch the game change. Yeah.
Hello, welcome back to the Future of Pickleball on Selkirk TV. This is the show where we get a chance to talk to the serious movers and shakers in the sport, the people that are making a difference throughout the world. Today, I have a wonderful, interesting guest that's doing some amazing things in pickleball, Mr. Pranav Kohli. Welcome to the show, Pran.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you for having me, and thank you for your kind words.
Good. I want to give people a little bit of an idea as to just how deep you have gotten into the pickleball space. Pran is the CEO of a company called Pickleball United that is one of the court installation companies that has been very successful. He's a leader in the Asian Pickleball Association, and Pran is the founder of the PWR and PWT, and we're going to come back to the PWR and the PWT in just a minute. But let's first step in, guide us a little bit as to how you discovered pickleball and how you chose to step up in a big way in it in the East.
Like all good things, pickleball was introduced to me by my wife back in 2019. She manages our Amazon business and e-commerce businesses actually, and right now she manages the whole business outside of pickleball because I'm completely involved in pickleball. But she came to me with 2 Franklin paddles back in 2019, wooden paddles. And she said, this is a sport which has a huge, curve on Amazon, and I think we should look at it. And like men always do, I ignored her at that time, and I said, I haven't heard of the sport, so naive on my part. But I'm now making up for it by giving her full credit that she was the one actually who introduced me to pickleball. So that was my initial introduction to pickleball. I didn't do anything with it up until May 2022. Which is when I first started looking at pickleball as an opportunity for us. Yeah.
And now, give us a little bit of an idea. First of all, where am I talking to you now?
I'm currently in India. So at this point.
And so, tell me a little bit about the current India scene of pickleball right now. What's happening and where?
Yeah, I mean, right now in Mumbai, you've got Jay de Villiers playing, Kwang Dong playing. Got a few players from the US who've come down for Megan is going to be there, Ryler is going to be there, Rob Nunry is there. So I guess it's all happening in India. I mean, so we've got an interesting open called Monsoon Open happening here, which is hosted by Global Sports. Phenomenal event that's going on at this point, which is a $100,000 prize money event that is happening as we speak. And then there's another $50,000 PWR event that is happening in October, and then in January we have a $500,000 event. All 3 of these events are actually in India. So 100,000 now, 50,000 in October, and $500,000 in January. And then right after that we have the World Series event in Dubai, which is $1.5 million. So I guess Asia's got this kind of this prize money centered. But what's very critical is that you've got really good participation also coming along. So it's 937 participants at the global sports event right now, the Monsoon Open. So I think India, as what we're seeing is that the growth has been phenomenal. People are loving the sport. We have a natural affinity as a continent towards racket sports. So it's a great I would say great platform that has been built. Of course, there's a lot to be done, but I think India is leading charge on that front, at least from the rest of the world
Cool.
outside of
Now
the
tell
US.
me, in the growth that we've had in America, now as it's starting to expand globally, what is the demographic group that's participating in pickleball in India?
I mean, look, there's obviously the first time pickleball players, just like US, have been the tennis pros, and then also, on the pro category side, but also the, 40 plus demographic has been very active. But what we're seeing now is with all these events and all these cool things taking place, is the first generation pickleball players are also coming along, and the juniors category, which both of which are actually performing quite well. Players are doing well. The future on the young generation of pickleball players in India is quite bright. And I think the senior side of it have also taken to it with full force, and I think they're also doing quite well.
I want to tell you guys about one of the best additions I've got to my game, and it's not another paddle, it's not another shirt, it's my Selkirk tour bag. Selkirk bags are designed with tremendous intent. They're to help you organize, to keep things that you need with you where you can get at them whenever you want them. The beauty of the Selkirk bags is they're designed by a company that really thinks first, last, and always about pickleball. They've created a series of bags at all kinds of price points that are tremendously well designed, and frankly, they look really good. Look at the Selkirk bags, not only for what you do courtside. I use my tour bag as my travel bag when I'm going around the country. Selkirk will help you have the best experience you can have. Enjoy it. Thanks so much. You can find all the bags on selkirk.com's website. And it is described to us the kind of facilities that pickleball is being played in, and where are the kind of places that Pickleball United has managed to make an impact in the pickleball space.
I mean, so the kind of spaces that are being used in India right now are similar to the US convention centers that we've done, and also tennis courts and converting them into pickleball courts using our court mats, and the same we do in the US. Last year, if you look at any major activation which happened in the US, and then this year also some of the major activations like Super Bowl, or whether it was Nick Kyrgios playing, or whether it was the Carlos Alcaraz, or whether it was Michael Chang, Andy Roddick, whoever was playing, the activations that were done last year were all done on Pickleball United courts. So I think Pickleball United as a brand has managed to bring pickleball into areas which were not imagined before. We're gonna be in Dubai at the Expo City in February, which is it's a phenomenal dome venue that was used for Expo 2020 in Dubai. So otherwise, there was no way to think about playing pickleball in these places. I mean, how do you get pickleball in Hard Rock in Miami, right? It's you have to build a platform, roll the mats out. So yeah.
Very nice, very nice. Now, one of the things we're talking about India, but I know you're involved very much in the Asian Pickleball Association. Tell us, in the greater scheme of things, what's going on beyond India in Asia?
I mean, Asia overall as a continent is known as a sleeping giant, but like China, I think phenomenal growth, number of courts and number of new players, younger generation players, younger players. I think there is a huge amount of courts that are being built, under the radar, in the sense that there are not a lot of big players coming from China just as of yet. But as we speak, I think they're getting better. The quality of players is getting better and better. But more importantly, the number of courts that are being built in China, it's just phenomenal. Beyond that, if you look at even the player quality that's coming in from places like Vietnam, Taiwan, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, the player quality has just been exceptional. Obviously, some of these players have been converts, and some of these players have actually managed to play on the tours in the US. So I think the player quality that is coming from the Asian sector is huge.
And so when you're talking, and I know I've seen, I know at the U.S. Open in April, there was a strong Indian contingent of some players that performed very, very well. I think they caught a lot of people by surprise. Do you think a lot of that comes from the paddle racket culture of India with ping pong or table tennis and
Yeah.
with badminton being major sports?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think the players who came in fifth at the US Open actually in the English Open right now beat Ryler and Rob in the for the bronze medal match. So Harsh and Arman actually defeated Ryler and Rob in the bronze medal match, actually 11-6 and 11-2. So, the player quality is getting better. So, I mean, we wouldn't have imagined for last year for these players to even come close, but like they were competitive enough this February in the Indian Open. And then now at the English Open, they actually, and they lost a very close match in February. But now, come July and August, they were actually, far ahead in terms of the quality of play. So I think, it's phenomenal the kind of growth that Indian pickleball, the talent on the Indian pickleball and the Asian pickleball side is seeing. So Indian contingent is growing stronger and stronger. We're also promoting a lot of amateur play. We're also promoting a lot of participative play. Minor league pickleball, for example, is a great example of that. Those kind of things are coming now to Asia. We've taken the license for minor league pickleball to hold that across Asia from a amateur standpoint. So I think all of these things combined is the perfect recipe. Now, interestingly, we are the largest badminton playing continent in the world. We're also the largest table tennis playing continent in the world. So automatically that racket sport affinity and racket sport transference is there. It's an easier task for players from table tennis to kind of get up on the net and have great hands. It's an easier task for badminton players to cover the whole court. I mean, I played with some of these badminton players and I saw them play actually. They have phenomenal court coverage because the court size is the same. So they know every inch and every corner of this court. They just need to get adjusted to having a ball bounce. But yeah, I mean, the kind of court coverage they have, I haven't seen, with specifically, I mean, of course, they have to develop other skills, but like the court coverage for badminton players is phenomenal. So I think there is transference of skills from each of these sports. And I think as more and more people get into pickleball, you will see outside of tennis groups, a lot of other racket sport players which are strong in Asia will come in and perform as well.
Yeah, it's interesting as we talk about that and the ability to compete on a global scale. It brings up the natural question about this thing called the Olympics, and I understand that there's a lot of talk about 2032 in Australia, and I understand the next one after that may very well be in India. Has that been decided yet?
It, some things are almost but decided, but this is still in contention. But yes, I think in all probability, the 2036 Olympics is going to be in India. One of the endeavors and one of the goals at our organization is actually to make sure and bring this home, even if it happens in 2032, great. But if it doesn't happen in 2032, we want to make sure that 2036 we bring pickleball home to the Olympics. And obviously, selfishly, we want the gold medal to come from India, but that's a more selfish, I would say, goal. But I think a national selfish goal. But yes, the idea of the whole sport coming into Olympics is a noble one, and I think collectively we're all working towards that goal.
I think that's so cool, and I think you can be okay with being selfish about wanting the gold. That's the whole idea of the Olympics. We want to be there because we're going to try and not let you have the gold. I'm just telling you.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where I think the next decade, of my kind of contribution to the sport needs to be spent in building the ecosystems across these countries. Where, of course, a lot of it in India, but also across Asia. So it's a very competitive Olympic, and it's not just you who's stopping us, but also maybe China and other countries. But then, hopefully we take it in the end. But yeah.
So now one of the things that has become kind of contributed to the phenomenon in America, and I'm sort of interested to see if there's been any cross transferences, is we have a lot of Hollywood celebrities, TV celebrities. We've got ex-pro athletes coming into the game in a big way. Are those same characteristics at all showing up, or do you think they will show up?
Absolutely. I mean, so look, we've got Agassi coming to flag off the Indian Pro Tour and League. He's a legend in the sport, and his presence here in India is going to make a huge difference. At this point, we're talking to various Indian and international celebrities to be part of various, team structures that we're, creating, and obviously a lot of A-list celebrities. I do believe, though, of course, celebrity involvement is a big factor, and having that transparency there is important. But I think just even without that, right? Like just the growth that has been there in terms of the sport. Once somebody plays pickleball in a racket sport kind of nation and a continent, it's one of those things that you don't stop playing, and you don't stop hearing about it. I mean, 2 years ago when when we kind of started pickleball and we started into pickleball or got into the pickleball space, they, nobody that I spoke to knew about pickleball. Absolutely, I had to explain to them it's a smaller version of tennis, and it's that's how I had to explain to them, because even though I didn't think so, but like that's how I had to explain to them. Today, I mentioned pickleball, and the first reaction is, yeah, I've seen it, heard it, played it, watched it. One of those things, and I think that's so cool for the sport. I think it's it's a testament to what's to come, even from a media broadcast perspective. Of course, we have to get a lot of things together, but I think it's a testament to come that people are playing it, people are enjoying it, and I think we have to now figure out how to get them to watch it. But I think similar to what's happening in the US as well, a lot of people are playing it, a lot of people are enjoying it, and I think that's a global phenomenon in that sense.
Very cool. I want to just take just a quick little break here. If you're enjoying watching this and seeing the kind of guests that I get on the Future of Pickleball show, take this opportunity, hit the like button, subscribe to the show, and hit the notify button, and you'll get these the minute they're released. Pran, I want to jump back now into really sort of the giant question in the room for Americans. You made a huge announcement on the PWR and the PWT. Let's first talk about what the Pickleball World Ranking is going to be and the Pickleball World Tour. If we could start with the Pickleball World Ranking, guide me a little bit as to what that is and how that compares to the rank or the rating systems that we've had.
Well, I mean, if you look at what Duper is doing, and we are working, in tandem with Duper, and it's a complementary system for us, and we love the guys at Duper. Duper as a rating system, gives you a rating for how you're playing. Ranking is a composite number, and it's dependent on your performance in the events that you play. And those events can both be rec as well as pro, but like it's dependent on. So the structure the way we have created it, you can get both a pro and an amateur ranking, but it's dependent on the number of events you're playing and number of matches that you're playing in those events and how you fare in those events. It's less relative to your performance against a particular player, if it's higher ranked or lower ranked, but it's more relative to where you reach in those events, and then accordingly have a more composite point-based system. These two things are complementary to each other, because the way we look at it is that in order to help amateurs look at hyper-local rankings, they need to see, let's say, if I want to see who the 3.5 best 3.5 player is, or the best highest ranked 3.5 player is within my community, then I can have a hyper-local ranking as well, depending on if there are events in those areas and people who are playing in those localities, right? If I want to see who the, let's say, for example, best 3.5 player in Austin is, the highest ranked 3.5 player in Austin is. So if they have ranking points, you can actually, bring it down to your rating and then have a ranking based on composite points. If you just do it from a rating perspective, you may have multiple players at 3.5, 3.51, 3.52. So ratings provide a great indication to what the quality of the player, level of the player is. Ranking is an absolute number, which actually ranks you from 1 to whatever.
I think that is very cool. Certainly one of the things, I came, like many people, from an extensive tennis background, and we always knew there was always the CDTA was the Chicago district, about a 5-state region. We always knew exactly where we stood on the ladder, and whether we could move up a couple of notches was always kind of the goal. I think that's going to be very cool. So that will be both pros and amateurs. But now on the pro level, How will you see that developing and overlaying with the existing pro leagues that are going on around the world? How will that happen?
I mean, I think there is a lot of opportunity for all of us to coexist. I do believe. I mean, I'm a great fan of what is happening. I mean, one of the inspirations for us to start this internationally was what was happening with the APP, with the PPA, with the MLP, and I'm a huge fan of what is happening on that side of it. So I think, like for example, Pickleball World Rankings is the title sponsor for minor leagues pickleball. So we've got ranking systems that we are starting off there as well, which is an amateur kind of a ranking base. For the US right now, for the World Series, we've got an invitation only, but rest of the world is adapting to the ranking system. September in Hong Kong, we've got a PWR 700 event, for example, where you can earn up to 700. Then October event in India is a 700 event. Then the league event in January is going to be a 1000 event. Similarly, we'll have an event in Japan, which is going to be a 700. Then you've got events in Spain, which are 400. We've got events which are, state events in India, which are 200. So the whole, we're kind of building the whole pyramid across the globe. We've got great tie-ups in Latin America. We're just finalizing things with the European Pickleball Federation and in countries in Europe. The idea is that, with the ranking system, traditionally, your global governing bodies kind of dictated that. What we're saying is nothing different to that. It's basically from a private side of it, we're preempting the investments that you're going to need to build a ranking system. So we're undertaking that. And also at the same time, we're saying, look, you're going to have the idea is to have the revenues and the data from that, right? So we're going to have access to both the revenues as well as data. So we're not trying to go in there and monopolize the rankings. We're saying, well, this is what we've created. We have preempted the investment into a software. We've preempted an investment into a structure. We've preempted an investment into supporting tournaments so that more people can have tournaments, more countries can have tournaments. We've preempted into creating a pathway so that you don't have to create the Grand Slams. And then we're saying, look, it doesn't mean that you don't participate in the revenues or in the data. We're open to having all those conversations. So the way we're working with NGBs is essentially telling them that we're going to help you create this ranking system, but at the same time, it's going to be co-owned in a way where whatever access you would otherwise have had to a ranking which you would have created, you would have similar access. And we just, because we've invested, we'll take a cut of the share and then the rest remains with you. So that's how we're looking at it globally.
So now, when there were some numbers that I've heard, but I'd like to hear them specifically from you. What are the prize money components that you're bringing into this? Because that's really going to be the game-changing portion of this. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, look, so it depends on the kind of event. So, for example, in October, we have a small, PWR 700 event in India, which is a $50,000 prize money event. Then we've got in January a big major league, which is the Indian League, Indian team event system, which is 6 teams, 24 players, which is a $500,000 prize money event, where there are only 24 players. And, we're just finalizing the structure of it. But the way we're looking at it is that, your 16 players will get $15,000 as appearance fee. And the remaining 8, the winning team and the runners-up team, the winning team, each player will get $50,000 and the runners-up team will get $30,000 each. So, the winning team will get $200,000 and the runners-up team will get, $120,000. And then you'll have contribution on the remaining. So that's by itself is going to be the largest single prize money event. And then in Dubai, right, 8 days later, this league will end on 23rd of January, and 8 days later on the 1st to the 8th of February, you'll have a $1.5 million prize money event, which is focused more on the tour as well as the team system. So, and that the division of that will come out with soon. But essentially, if you look at it in a matter of 25 days, you'll have $2 million distributed in prize money in pickleball in Asia, and of course it's open to all players from across the globe, and we have a structure of how they can enter it. But I mean that's the kind of prize monies we're looking at.
So now, and you mentioned something there that's really going to be critical. You mentioned how they'll qualify for that. What give us a little bit, even if it's not down to the fine points. Guide us as an
Sure.
example of how people will qualify to get into the really big money events.
Yeah. So, for example, right now, if you look at the United States specifically, uh, so in the team events in Dubai, for example, we've got 24 players, six teams, 24 players, 4 players each, 12 players from the US and 12 players from the rest of the world. The 12 players from the US are going to be made up of 2 players from minor league, the winners of the Duper 22, and we have certain criterias in there, to have a minimum Duper rating because we are the title sponsor, so we need to have those guys. The top rated players and top ranked players in the Canadian Pro Tour, so North America gets covered from that perspective, and then the remaining are going to be invitation only. So the remaining 8 players are going to be through invitation for the time being. Eventually, we'll have enough events for them to earn Pickleball World Ranking points. Now, having said that, if some of those players have played any PWR events in Asia, like the Hong Kong event or the India event in September and then October, or the China event in December, then they will have priority over the others because they would already have some PWR ranking points. So the invitation is going to be based on that. Eventually, this is the first year of us holding these events, but eventually we'll have a robust system across the globe where people will be able to earn Pickleball World Ranking points in their countries, in their cities, in their states, and they'll be able to qualify for these events.
Man, it is getting to be an exciting place out there. You're making some fun stuff happen. In
Absolutely.
this in these press releases and the media and noise that's been going on in the market space, we've also heard the term the World Series of Pickleball. Does that overlay with this, or is that different or separate? How does
No,
that
so
play?
that's the Dubai event. It's called Pickleball World Series. It's the so Pickleball World Ranking World Series essentially. So it's our 6 marquee events, which is the $1.5 million event that I'm staying in Dubai. It's both a individual based event and a team based event. So you've got 6 days of play, phenomenal location, uh, and as we release more information about it in terms of pictures, and you'll see that. But the idea is that it's our first World Series event, and we want to hold 6 of these, at least 4 to 6 between, depending on the time frame. So the first one we're holding it in Dubai at Al Wasl Dome, which is essentially a mirror of the Sphere in Las Vegas. And the next one we want to go to the Sphere. So that's how we're building this out.
And so when you talk, do you have a date for the Las Vegas event?
Yeah, so right now it is scheduled to be in June 2025, but we may push it a month because we may have to do something in Europe during May, with coinciding with one of the ATPs. There's an interesting opportunity coming out in Europe, so we're just figuring that out. So it could be July, but as of now, tentatively June. And I think by end of September, we'll have almost all the dates finalized, at least for the first 4 events. The fourth event after, let's say if we do Europe before or after, but the fourth event after these 3 events is going to be in India.
Very nice, very nice. I'll tell you, you're giving a lot of us a reason to start thinking about getting our travel agents aiming us in the right direction. It sounds like these will be some pretty exciting events.
And Paul, I
The
mean, I'll tell you one more thing. I'll add to that. There is a huge amateur side of it as well. So we're working with minor league pickleball, obviously, and then we also have our own IP coming out on amateur side of it, which is basically your battle of the leagues. We have our first Battle of the Leagues event happening in October, which is just going to be like a trial stage event. But this event, Battle of the Leagues, is essentially you create a league for the whole season, and then you get to compete. And this is an amateur because it's a Duper 12, Duper 16, and a Duper 20 event. And you get to compete for $1 million as an amateur. So at the end of the year on the last World Series event, so this also gives, from an amateur perspective. So you don't just travel for the World Series, but you also travel to play in the Battle of the Leagues event, which is a minor league format event. The cool part about this is that you can hold as many Battle of the League events, as many amateur participation happening on that front, and it becomes the highest prize money. So we wanted to also include the amateurs in the whole the prize money for the pros. But now, as a Duper 12 player, you can, Duper 12 team, a 3.0 player can also look at earning $300,000 from playing pickleball.
You're stimulating some thoughts in my head right now about maybe making sure my duper rating is just exactly where it needs to be in the 2025. I like that. Yeah, and
Yeah,
I won't be the only one that's thinking about that. I'll tell you. So that's
I know.
very
I know.
cool. It's interesting. We're talking about some massive amounts of money. Who are the participants that are working with you that are helping to bring this all together?
Yeah, I mean, our anchor investor is Times Group. So that's essentially Mr. Vineet Jain, who's the MD of Times Group. He's a benefactor, pickleball player. He's a phenomenal individual. His contribution to the sport, I think, in the back end, you won't feel. I mean, obviously we're the ones who are executing, me and my team, but I think it's credit to him in terms of believing in our vision and financing and funding the whole vision. And then, of course, there is a lot of that. The initial impetus was given through him, but fortunately, there's been a lot of receptive, or it's been very receptive on how we were thinking of the overall vision. And I think, funding is least of our problems at this point. But creating the right products. Look, one of the key things, Paul, if you look at what we're building, is not, broadcasting is the end goal. But if you look at how we're kind of building this out from a monetization perspective, where our objective is to get, participative side of pickleball is a huge side of it, right? So we're trying to get more and more amateurs to play. We're trying to get more and more amateurs to contribute to that monetization. We're trying to create opportunities for operators of small events to kind of create opportunity for them to have participation in their events, which then leads to a bigger event. So, for example, if you are an operator and you add a Battle of the Leagues event, you can always say that this leads into $1 million event, right? So the idea is that, we're helping others monetize. We're helping, of course, monetization for ourselves. But overall, if you look at it, we're trying to increase participation in the sport. As that happens over a period of time, I mean, and that's where I would credit Mr. Vineet Jain for kind of believing in the long-term vision for this, because we're not talking about the next 3 years of the company. We're talking about the next decade of pickleball. We're talking about the next 2 decades of pickleball, where it's going and what legacy we can leave behind as a company. So I think that's where we're kind of focusing on the next decade of pickleball specifically, and looking at how we can make sure that this, our company as both a private for-profit organization, does well for its shareholders, but also grows the sport dynamically, because the two are interlinked. So, if we grow the sport, other things will be taken care of. But I think that's where we're looking at kind of growing. So I think the vision that we put across is it's a huge undertaking. It's a deterrent one for anybody to kind of like think along those lines, because you're thinking global, you're thinking across, there are a lot of hurdles, there are a lot of challenges, to get it done. But I think, with the team that we have and with the backing that we have, this is a very possible and a very achievable dream that we've laid out for ourselves.
It's exciting for me to hear you talk about the different things that are happening, having been in the sport in America for quite a while and seeing the exponential growth. To imagine that happening in other continents around the world is amazing. Could you give me a little bit of insight, if you have it, on the Middle East? You're talking about doing a major tournament in Dubai. I don't generally hear about the Middle East as being one of the hotspots compared to India or China. Guide me a little bit as to what's happening there.
Very strategic, Paul, in that sense. If I was to ask you today, if you were to allot Grand Slams in tennis, with Saudi Arabia taking the rights for ATP for $3.5 billion, with the kind of sports, Abu Dhabi has a F1 race that's coming, that's there. Saudi has UFC coming there. If I was to ask you, where would you allot a Grand Slam? Just from the sake of kind of what we can build out there in terms of the production quality, in terms of the facilities, in terms of everything that is there. I mean, if you look at Dubai as a as the city's population is concerned, as far as the captive audience is concerned, you're talking about 3 million people, right? You're not talking about a huge population, collectively 10 million people across, but and Saudi is about 70 million people. So Saudi still has a huge captive audience. But if you talk about just Dubai from that perspective, it's not a huge population that you're targeting in terms of a participation perspective. But if you talk about where the sports is going, you look at what's happening with football in Saudi and Qatar, and what's if you look at the World Paddle League going to Qatar in terms of their highest prize money event. If you talk about table tennis world, Saudi Smash happening, and WTT Saudi Smash happening, all these events are moving towards Middle East for multiple reasons. And one of those reasons is that the local governments are very supportive for sporting events in terms of, for example, the venue that we have is highly subsidized. Dubai Expo, it's one of our sponsors. The local, for example, the airlines that we're talking to, the sponsors that we're talking to, local sponsors, they're all very supportive of bringing sporting activities into the country. So I think the key reason for us to hold a major event there, and also it's a very international place in terms of bringing everybody over, in terms of, it's a mix of West and East. So you don't kind of miss that, you don't feel that you're totally in the East, but then you also have a flavor of that international side of it. So it's a very strategic place to hold something like the Pickleball World Series because it's at a place where East meets West kind of a thing, which with all the luxuries that you can imagine in terms of, and all the show that we need to put together, this needs to feel, I mean, we're trying to compare ourselves with the Grand Slams, right? So our event needs to feel like a Grand Slam. We cannot hold event anywhere close to any events that have happened across the globe. Because if I ask you, Paul, what would you call the Grand Slam of pickleball at this point, right? I mean, and I think probably in my head, US Open and and nationals and these events probably come to mind. And I don't know, what do you think? What would you call the Grand Slam of pickleball at this point?
I'm so glad you asked me that. And so it is. You're exactly right. I've actually been working with kind of a national leadership group trying to figure out how to create the sort of venues that we really need for the future of pickleball, because we don't really have what you're talking about yet.
Yeah.
U.S. Open's a fabulous venue, but it's a city park, and
Yeah.
the things that we do. So your message is resonating with me. Believe me.
And I think that's where the events that we're putting need to feel like a Grand Slam. They at least need to have that larger than life feeling, because unless and until we do that, it's a disservice for me than to say that it is akin to a Grand Slam.
Yes, yes. But as we start to kind of wind through this interview, one of the things that I wanted to talk to you particularly about is I met you through a couple of the bigger industry events going on from the business side of pickleball. And there are two events coming up that I believe you're going to be involved with, one in Hong Kong in September and another in the Pickleball Minds event in January in Dubai, where I'll be, and I'm looking very forward to it. I've not been to Dubai, so I'm kind of anxious to see what all this looks like. Guide me a little bit as to what your vision is as you go into those kind of meetings.
I mean, obviously, like, you and I both know Amitabh. I think Amitabh's vision with this is spot on in terms of what he wants to create. I think there's obviously what we are doing is as an individual company, but there's a huge pent up demand for people to get involved in pickleball. So I think for me, the idea is to go to these events and passionately talk about pickleball, so that it's an easier decision for some of these guys, whoever's thinking to get involved in pickleball, for them to make that decision and take that jump. Because right now for a lot of the countries in Asia, it is a leap of faith, and that leap of faith comes from probably talking about it, that look, this is where we are at, this is what we're doing, and we built this in the last couple of years. The sport's been built in the last 6-7 years in the US. So, there is a huge possibility now. It's at the nascent stage. If you get involved now, the next decade of pickleball is going to be very, very interesting. So my objective at these events is to talk positively, which I truly believe about pickleball, and passionately.
Good. I'm going to take just a little aside. I want to mention to anybody that's watching this, if you're seeing this on YouTube, I've asked you to subscribe and like what we're doing, but also be aware that this is being broadcast on the Selkirk TV app. The Selkirk TV app is the premier site for an aggregation of interviews, podcast shows, coaching, teaching, and you can even see live PPA events broadcast from your phone. Get the Selkirk TV app. You'll love it. As we come now down to the end of our interview, Pran, I want to ask you the $54,000 question. I guess that's not enough money anymore, is it? As you mentioned that you guys are taking a very long view, not 2 to 5 years, but 10 to 20 years. And typically I'm asking my guests what their vision of the 3 to 5 year plan is. But let's take you out, guide us a little bit as to where you think this sport can go in the next decade or two.
Yeah, I mean, clearly we want this to be the most played racket sport in the world. And that feat is, I think, achievable. Of course, there's a lot of work to do. Getting into the Olympics is a key component to that. Olympics adds a huge amount of value to a lot of countries across the globe. So our whole vision is to create the right infrastructure for the sport, from good governance to IOC compliance to helping people build that and create their we're basically looking at creating good governance, creating your first rating, creating your first ranking, creating a first event, putting up your first calendar across in a year. We want to help countries, NGBs do that, and so that we are compliant for IOC faster, and the sport becomes the most played sport in the world.
That is so interesting to me. And as you've gotten yourself very deep in the sport globally, do you have, so you've got a direct alignment with Duper. I think that's very interesting with the Asian Pickleball Association and with governance. How are you seeing that factoring? How do you see the global governance coming together?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of interesting factors right now that are happening with pickleball governance across the globe. Obviously, with the kind of noise that pickleball is making, the existing tennis federations in certain countries are getting more interested in trying to take over the sport. I know a couple of countries where they're trying to do that. There's already, Global Pickleball Federation, which is, kind of aligned by USA Pickleball Association. And then obviously you have the UPAA. I think for us right now, our focus is to build Asian Pickleball Association. Actually, it's not even to build Asian Pickleball Association. It's actually to build strength in numbers and also help countries build their own federations up. Right now we're too nascent of a stage because some of these countries don't even have resources to put on a proper event, right? So our objective is how do we take them from creating an IOC compliant body to creating their first event, to creating the first rating, creating the first ranking, to put out a calendar, right? What are the resources what are the resources they will need to do all of these things, and then have participation across. So countries where we're looking at whether it's building facilities, whether it's donation, whether it is getting equipment across to them, whether it's getting resources across to them, whether it's sponsorship for more developed countries which already have some kind of a pickleball program, to build it out from there onwards. Collectively with Duper, we're basically saying, okay, this is what these countries need, and let's go in and get it to them.
Pran, I've got to tell you, I have really enjoyed hearing you talk and describe in detail the things that are going on from your end. Make me a promise, would you, that you and I can do this again sometime in the future, because I think you're going to be making some things move. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say thank you for sitting in with Pran and I. I've loved this interview. Pran, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll look forward to seeing you at Pickleball Minds in Dubai in January.
Thank you, Paul. Looking forward to seeing you as well.